Welcome to Savvy Business, Life Unscripted, with your host, Christina Rivera, where our guests share their wisdom and valuable business tips, empowering our audience to expand their personal potential.
Hi, Heather Carter. Welcome to Savvy Broadcasting, Life Unscripted. I'm so grateful to have you here for our Unleash Your Story podcast. We had a bit of a trial getting started here. You're the author of Soul-Selfie, No Filter. And we had to, it was StreamYard and some audio issues, but thank God you stood with us here. But what was the impetus for you writing Soul-Selfie?
No, it's a mouthful, huh?
Yeah.
Well, I started, I didn't really intend to write a book. I never in my life wanted to write a book. I'm not a writer that I just kind of think of myself as someone who started writing to update people, and it kind of morphed into something bigger. So in 2015, I was diagnosed with acute myeloid leukemia, and we started a blog site so we could update people on the status of my cancer. And that quickly morphed. I spent 70 days in the hospital, so I had a lot of reflection time. And I really felt like God said, Heather, you are a full-time job. You need to flip that camera back around on yourself and worry about mind your own business, worry about yourself, take care of what I've got for you in there, and then use what I teach you, or use some lessons that you've learned in the hard stuff to help other people. So I write kind of like a daily reading post about common plagues of the heart, as I call them, the diseases like worry, fear, resentment, control, image management, all that stuff that's kind of chronic. So my cancer is in remission, but that stuff seems to be tagging along.
Yeah. It's interesting because I think a lot of those things you're mentioning, self-doubt and whatever, I think social media don't help in those situations. We talked just prior in our other chat that social media, in some cases, especially in the beginning when I joined it, it was really highlighting everyone has a fantastic life. Everyone's showing their best foot forward. Yes. So then you begin to feel, well, I'm not as good as them. I wish I could be, my business could be as good, or whatever. And then we're all like living this lie. It's not real. What we're living online is this kind of false avatar. Right. But in real life, we're struggling because we all have struggles. And so what I love about Soul-Selfie and your post is that you went out there and you was like, okay, I had a bad day. It's a messy day. I'm going to share the messiness of it, get real, and not hide behind, this has to be perfect.
Right. I think people, like we talked about earlier too, is people are just getting tired of that. It's exhausting. And we don't want to compare ourselves to other people, but it takes a lot of intentionality not to, and social media definitely invites it. One of the things I repeated a lot over some interviews recently is about that Facebook and any social media site, it shows the whole picture, but it doesn't show the real picture. We don't take a picture of and post about the fight that happened before the cool picture at the birthday party that we all wish we could be at. And we don't show what's happening behind closed doors with the husband that someone has posted. Oh, I'm so glad to be married to my best friend. When if I only saw that picture on social media, I would think I want that relationship to be mine, when I know for a fact that girl doesn't really want to be married to him anymore. So you have these conflicting things. But I think that we're starting to do shows like this and other positive things that can kind of take back some of the falseness that's on social media.
Yeah. I love that you say that, because really, I think it makes it, like you were saying, it's so exhausting trying to live that perfect life. Even when you try to put on the mask for others, let me just show them that everything's great, because it's okay if everything's not great. I think I told you, I did tell you in the last little chat we had, it wasn't that long ago.
I know. When we talked a few minutes ago before technology
5 minutes. But I had started 10 years ago, I started a blog called 101 Mistakes and What I Learned in Business. And my friend was like, no, you can't do that. No one will ever want to work with you. And it wasn't true, actually. People did want to work with me. But what I think is the blessing and the curse of social media is you can kind of hide the messy backstory. Whereas, let me give you an example. I had a live event, one of my first, and I had promised everyone this is going to be huge. And I was trying to imitate what I saw some really big people doing online. So I must have sold like 15 tickets, mostly to the speakers. And then people came, and I promised I was going to feed them all and all this stuff. Well, by the end of the day, I could barely just make the rent on the room, and that was about it. And so I couldn't afford no food. So the night before, I had to humble myself and say, okay, guys, there's no food, no drinks. I'm
Bring your
money.
own sack lunch.
Yeah, sack lunch. And I felt really humiliated. So, and then I said that to the people who were going to speak. And then the few people who were actually guests in the audience. I said to them, I'm sorry, I can't provide any food. And they were just like, please. So what ended up happening, which is so great because I humbled myself and stopped pretending that I had to look perfect, is all the speakers brought a little something. It was like a big potluck because, everyone bought a little this, a little that. And we probably had more food had I gone out and spent a couple $100. So what I liked about that happening is that sometimes when you're just being real, you invite help from others because people want to help.
Yeah. And you give them permission to be real and authentic themselves because you're leading, someone has to lead the way in that. And that's what I try to write about in Soul-Selfie, and the Soul-Selfie #NoFilter is just about, like I said, no filter. That doesn't mean I say rude things without a filter. It means I try not to filter out the bad stuff when I talk. I try to tell the real story behind how I'm feeling or what I'm going through. Yeah. And not try to do the image management thing and make everyone control what they think about me. Yeah. I did that for far too long. And I was a pastor's wife actually for 20 years. And I think I thought that was part of my job. But I'll tell you what, no one probably would have written anything I wrote then because they didn't relate to me because I didn't ever talk about the bad stuff. I just sugarcoated things. And so now I just kind of put it out there, and turns out I'm not the only person who is crazy if that's how you want to look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not. And then, not only can people relate, like you said, you give them permission to be their own messy self, but say, okay, this is messy. What do we do to do better tomorrow? Because, we don't want to stay in our least potential. We want to grow. So, okay, this is me not being at my best. Let's start over. Tomorrow's a new day.
Right. Yeah. And I really I really see my goal in writing and continuing to write, because I thought, maybe God just gave me this gift because I had cancer. And now that my cancer is gone, my writing gift is going to go out the window also. But because I continually struggle with common plagues of the heart, as I call them, like the worry and fear and control and etc., those are chronic and they're not going to go completely away in this lifetime, probably. So I continue to reason things out on paper with myself and with God, and then share it with other people. And I really want people to learn how to harness hope in the trauma, the drama, and the minutia of everyday life. Because really the minutia is where we spend 80% of our time. How can you still grow through sitting in the bank teller line for 20 minutes because someone's taking too long? How can you feel hopeful and learn something about yourself and learn something about God and be loving to other people, doing the stuff that we really don't enjoy doing?
Yeah. And it's funny because even a lot of people today, the big thing is, we start a business. It's everyone should start a business. Not everyone wants to start a business, and it's not for everyone. And it's hard because it's all on you. And in the beginning, you're wearing all the hats, and everyone just looking at the companies that are 20 years down the line where it's easy breezy. But there were a lot of, as you say, minutia, things you didn't want to do on a day-to-day basis. Right.
And what do you do when no one's looking? What you do when no one's looking? And
exactly. And go.
I was just saying that's what gives us the character to eventually have any kind of success in life, is doing all the things behind the scenes, taking care of what's inside.
Yeah. And it was interesting when your PR agency sent me your book. They said young woman develops tics from TikTok, because they were kind of going into some of the negative effects of social media. It's a great tool. It can be used actually to better your business, to get out there and meet people. I've met wonderful people through
Right.
podcasting, through social media. I never probably would have met had I not had it. But what are some of the negatives that if we're not careful can happen? Now, share that with me. How do you get ticks from TikTok? I thought that was
I
interesting.
know that is the weirdest thing. I know I was just kind of scrolling around one day looking for some information because I was going to be doing some interviews on some social media stuff. It was kind of during when the Facebook shutdown happened and people were freaking out, and was kind of looking into that. And it talked about, basically it was people who had actually gone to some sites that were actually about women who, or people who had Tourette's, and were watching them repetitively, and then they were getting Tourette's. So, or they were getting the tics, whatever it was that they were watching repeatedly. They were watching them about that thing as well. But I just started thinking, like, that's so true. That's the physical thing that happened, is that it eventually came out in their body, but it probably was happening and it is happening right now to people who are repeatedly watching things, and they don't know how it's affecting them internally until someday it comes out sideways.
Boom.
You know,
or
the
even
stress and the depression and the comparison of and it's not just teenagers. People act like, oh, these kids these days. Like, have you met 50-year-old women or men? I mean, people are obsessed about it sometimes, and it's affecting how we think about our spouses, what they expect from them, what we expect from our friends, what we expect our bodies to look like. And what I finally kind of concluded is that a lot of people have made social media a small g god for them. Like that defines them.
Yeah.
How many people like them, or how they look, or what filter they've used to make themselves look better, all that stuff. They've put their identity out there on something that we all know is really not real.
Wow. You know, it's interesting you say this, because there's a doctor channel I like to watch on YouTube where he breaks down actual cases that came to the ER that he's either read in a case study or met other doctors or had the experience himself. And interestingly, that a lot of the stories recently coming out and coming into the ER are people who've done crazy things because they saw it on social media. Like, oh, let's eat these Tide Pods. I'm like, what? And they do these challenges. And the sad part are these teenagers are like, well, I could get like 100,000 likes. This video could go viral if I do this thing. But they're putting themselves in dire harm. And I don't, it's like kind of like the rational center of the brain went out the window, and they're like, I'm going to eat this Tide Bar. Let me see if I can do 3 of them. I'm like, nutters. So when I saw that, I thought, how could that ever happen to people? But I think you're right. It's not just negative. Some of the things that happen if you watch negative stuff over and over again on social media, the news, whatever, it does impact you spiritually, mentally, physically over time as well. But also, what are some of the actual physical, things like this that could happen to you if you decide to do something like, I want to get a viral video by doing this thing?
I know. It's crazy. And I think it's important to, I know a lot of people are pro, getting rid of social media and banning things and banning that, or getting off of it entirely. And I think, to me, it's, at least for me, it would be equivalent to, basically just becoming a monk or something, and moving out in the middle of nowhere and not interacting with humans to protect myself from, sinning or whatever, however you want to say it. I think that we need to be involved in the world, but not of the world. Bring the stuff that brings hope and light. And we can't change the course of social media if we're not on it at all. But I do think, obviously, like with the tics and how often and how long you're on it. I mean, I know for me, if I get on Facebook, even if I'm looking at positive stuff, and you probably relate to this, if you're a podcaster or you're an author or something, you're like, after a while, you're like, man, I stink. Apparently, I don't have that many followers, and I don't get live. I don't go live every day, so I guess I should just hang it up. That comparison game is a very strong pull for me, anyway. And I don't ever feel a lot better after I get off Facebook. I don't feel like, wow, I feel like tackling the world, and I feel great about myself. I usually have a little tinge of I should be doing more. Maybe I should I should upgrade this or upgrade that. So you have to be careful to guard your heart.
Yeah, I think the best thing to do is like have a plan of action before you hit them. And that's what I do with social media now. I'm like, I'm going out there for a certain thing, and you can go off into the deep end, go like, oh, look at this post and that post. But this is what I'm going to do. This is my goal today, to get on there and do this and get off. And don't look at it first thing in the morning. Yeah. But I don't know about you, but also also all the media channels as well. They're like, you can really get into a negative cycle there.
Yeah, we have to feed our minds with things that are positive to kind of counteract some of the things that we're looking at. And I hope that some people will get on if people are interested in reading more positive things. My books certainly I think will help, but you can also, if you just go to my website, which is heathercarterwrites.com, what I love about it, this girl just redid it for me, and it's now categorized, or the archives are in there by category. So if you're struggling on a certain day with resentment or with comparison, you can go to the archives and find that category or anxiety and read everything I've written about those topics. And they're all free. I'm not trying to make money. I just really want people to have that message of you're not in this alone. You're not the only one. And even if it's just you and me, and we're the only crazies out there, at least you're not alone. So, check that out. So, and I think it will give you at least a better perspective on some of the stuff you might struggle with.
Exactly. And also just stop the comparison. We all have our special gifts and talents. We all have our beauty. Even if you can't readily see it, just look to see what your gifts and talents are. Where do people get a copy of your book today and find out more about you? Where's the best place to go?
I would say heathercarterwrites.com. If you go there, you can read some of the blog posts, kind of try before you buy if you want to do that. And then on there's a place where it will say books, and you can go on there and order them. They're on Amazon also, of course, but there's also some Soul-Selfie stories, which I've recently put on there, and it links to my YouTube channel. And those are just interviews I've done with readers, random friends of mine, or people who've been reading for years, different authors and podcasters that are readers. And sorry, a little bit wild with talking with my hands. Anyway, those are kind of cool to just hear them, a testimonial about what it means to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it'll inspire others to go out there and write their own blog. They don't even have to share it if they don't want. For me, journaling was a big thing at one time in my life, just getting clear, where am I right now? What's important? What are my struggles? And sometimes just keeping it inside and just writing it. But writing it out is something that, boom, it makes it more clear, brings clarity, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. I started writing really for me because I was in the hospital by myself. I was going insane, and I was distressed because I had cancer. So that brings up a lot of things in your mind. And so I would just write. I got this, what I'm talking on right now, this is my iPad, and I have a little tiny keyboard for it. And that's what someone bought me when I got in the hospital. My mom bought me the laptop or iPad, and my friend bought me this keyboard. And that's, for 7 years, that's what I used to write all my blogs on, because my fingers go over the keys 100 miles an hour. And for me, writing was too slow because my thoughts, as you can tell, I'm talking really fast and kind of wild, that writing was just not good enough. I had to type it so it could just spew out of my brain onto a page. And I usually started writing it to myself, and then to God. And then by the end, I was writing it to you. Awesome. It just does that every time. I can't hardly stop myself.
And
that's
great.
Yeah,
it's your gift, and you're giving it to the world and giving them permission to go out and to express themselves in a totally authentic way without shame or trying to, I gotta look like someone else. So, Heather, I really thank you for putting out your blog and your books, Soul-Selfie, and the newest one, Soul-Selfie, no filter. Everyone go to heathercarterwrites.com. And thank you so much, Heather. I really appreciate you coming out tonight and sharing your story.
Yeah. And let me just say one more quick thing is if you go to Soul-Selfie blog on my, as my Facebook page, the nice thing about that is I post about 4 times a week, some what I call retro blogs. So ones I've written in the past that may or may not be in my previous books. And then you can sign up on my site. So whenever I write a new one, like I wrote one today, should be published, it will just email it to you automatically. So some people don't check Facebook really regularly, and good for you, but that way it'll just come straight in your email. So
that's great. Well, thank you so much, Heather. I appreciate you coming out today and sharing your story to our audience. Have a wonderful evening, and thank you for coming to Savvy Broadcasting.
Yep. Thanks, Christina.
You betcha.
Like, subscribe, and share this episode. To listen to more savvy episodes and savvy biz tips, go to www.lifeunscriptedradio.com. To find out about our paid sponsorship opportunities or how to become a guest, email Christina at lifeunscriptedradio.com.